So, you're a leader, and you want your team to be truly productive. But what if all those hours they're clocking in just aren't leading to real, meaningful impact? Well, today, we're going to unpack a framework that helps you shift your team from just being busy to being intensely effective. Let's get right into it.
Yeah, this is the question that probably keeps a lot of leaders up at night, right? You look around, calendars are packed, Slack is constantly buzzing, but is all that activity actually creating breakthroughs? Or is it just motion without any real meaning?
Well, that state of being busy but not really engaged, it has a name. We're going to call it the gray zone. This is the world of those endless meetings, the bureaucratic busy work, all those tasks that just drain energy instead of creating it. Honestly, it's the enemy of innovation.
So, what's the antidote to the gray zone? Well, this quote from Sir Walter Scott just nails it. Think about that for a second. He's proposing that we trade years of that mindless work for just one single hour of glorious, high-stakes action. It's a really radical idea, right? Shifting our focus from duration to pure, unadulterated intensity. And that brings us to the core idea of this whole explainer. We need to stop optimizing for time and start optimizing for intensity. It's all about creating those moments of deep focus and meaningful struggle, what we're going to call the glorious hour.
Okay, so let's get into the main framework. You can think of this as a kind of diagnostic tool, something you can use to map out exactly where you and your team are spending your most precious resource, your time and your energy. And here it is, our diagnostic tool. It's a simple 2x2 matrix. On the vertical axis, you've got your level of engagement, from passive up top to active down at the bottom. And then horizontally, you have the level of challenge, going from low on the left to high on the right. Now, these two axes create four very distinct quadrants of experience.
So up in the top left, we find quadrant 1, the gray zone. This is where you've got passive engagement and a low challenge. We've already met this one, right? This is the mindless scrolling, the bureaucratic tasks, all those meetings that definitely should have just been an email.
Now, down in the bottom left, we've got quadrant 2, the comfort zone. Here, you're actively engaged, but the challenge is still pretty low. Now, this isn't a bad place to be. It's actually essential for rest and recovery. You know, like when you're executing a task you've already mastered. The crucial thing to remember, though, is that no real growth is happening here.
Let's look at the top right. Quadrant 3, the danger zone. This is where you're facing a really high challenge, but you're in a passive, reactive state. You know this feeling. It's when a sudden production outage hits or a market crisis happens to you. It's just a state of anxiety and fear, not focused, purposeful effort.
And finally, we get to our goal, quadrant 4, down in the bottom right, the glorious hour. This is the magic spot where active engagement meets a high challenge. This is that flow state we all chase. It's where your team feels a deep, powerful sense of purpose and, you guessed it, achieves those incredible breakthrough results.
Now, this all sounds pretty good in theory, right? But what's really cool is seeing how this idea plays out in the real world. So let's look at a story from the world of rock climbing that makes this whole concept incredibly tangible.
Back in the 1960s, there were basically two ways you could climb a massive rock face like El Capitan. The old way was called the siege mentality. It was slow, it was safe, it involved a huge team, it was basically the gray zone of climbing. But then a new way was pioneered by climbers like Yvon Chouinard. They called it the single push. It was fast, it was light, and it was intensely focused. It was a true glorious hour on the side of a mountain.
And the best part? This wasn't just some climbing philosophy he left on the mountain. Chouinard took this exact mindset, this idea of choosing glorious action over mindless conformity, and he used it to build Patagonia, one of the most respected and purpose-driven companies on the planet.
So, the big question is, how do you, as a leader, actually engineer these glorious hours for your team? Let's get into the practical, step-by-step playbook you can start using.
You can't change what you don't measure. So the very first step is to do a simple audit. You have to be brutally honest with yourself and your team. Where does your time and energy really go in a typical week? How much of it is just getting lost to that gray zone?
For a lot of teams, a typical week might look something like this. A massive chunk of time just eaten up by the gray zone. Now, the goal isn't to eliminate the comfort zone completely. We all need to rest and recharge. But it is to systematically shrink that gray slice and grow the glorious one. So here it is, your 5-step leadership playbook. Number 1, create noble quests.
Don't just assign tasks. Frame the work as a meaningful challenge with a clear, inspiring purpose. 2. Protect from the gray zone. As a leader, your job is to be a shield. You have to ruthlessly eliminate the mindless bureaucracy and protect your team's focus. 3. Celebrate the struggle. Don't just reward the final win. Recognize and celebrate the intense effort itself, because that's where all the growth happens. 4. Give your best people your hardest problems. Seriously, the best way to keep your top performers engaged and loyal is to give them your hardest, most interesting problems to solve. And finally, number 5. Model a high-intensity life. You have to lead by example. Show your team that you're right there in the arena with them, pushing your own limits too. And why does all this matter so much? Because look, this whole approach fosters a culture of deep, meaningful work, not just mindless activity. It drives the kind of high-impact results that literally define careers. It keeps your best people because they crave that challenge. And ultimately, it transforms you from being just a manager of tasks into the leader of a mission.
So I'll leave you with this one question to really chew on. Forget about the next feature on the roadmap for a second. What is the next noble quest you can give your team? What glorious hour can you start engineering for them, starting tomorrow?